Hey there, this is Kurt Hollowell with Doggy Dog Games, and I'm here to do another tutorial for the Dream Build Play competition. Today I'm going to be going over coroutines and delegates and how to make a color animation for our controllers. So let's go right into it. I'll start off by showing you the effect. So let me just start up the Unity scene here. And so it looks like the entire series is really based around these controllers. Here we go, the game's starting. Let me switch over to mixed reality view. There you go, so you guys can see what I'm seeing. Here's our lovely controllers that we've designed. They've got snappy animations. Here's a game I've officially submitted for the Dream Build Play competition, so wish me luck, and anyone else in the comp, I wish you luck as well. So today we're going to be talking about this color animation. Right now it's on the left joystick. It's just looping through some random colors, but it's doing it inside a coroutine. So I wanted to talk about coroutines because I feel like a lot of Unity developers haven't really dealt with them much. I'll give everyone the code so they can add these to their own controllers as well. But I thought it'd be nice during the tutorial to just make a couple of the buttons stand out so that during the tutorial people know kind of what buttons they're supposed to press without having to really read the text as much. So that's the effect we're going to work on, and let's go ahead and look at how we do it. So let me stop Unity. Let's go right into the code. So this is all happening inside this tween color script, and it has this play random color animation, and it's going to start a coroutine. You can do it as a looping animation or just kind of a short timed animation. Let's go ahead and look at the looped animation. So this is the structure of a coroutine. You start off with this keyword IEnumerator, then the method name, and then inside you basically have a while loop. And a lot of times you'll have a condition inside the while loop, but for right now I want it to just stay in this state until we call stop. And let's go ahead and look at that stop. It's going to stop all coroutines. So all of these coroutines, you can have multiple running at a time. They're kind of like threads inside of Unity. It'll stop all of those that are running on this script. So I wanted this one to just keep looping. Basically, all this method does is sets a random color to the material. You can look at it. This tween color uses this color animation script, which is a scriptable object. If you haven't seen scriptable objects, they're basically like little assets that you can use in the scene and assign to multiple things. So, for example, right here, let's see, button color animation. So if you create a scriptable object class, you can go to game object. If Unity will catch up with me, game object, create, or where is it? Assets create, and here's color animation. So that's how you can create your own. And for all my animations, I just have like an animation curve. If you look at the public inspector, it's just declare public animation curve, and that'll give you this. This is all built into the inspector. You can add keys and make a cool curve for your animation. So this color animation script is for animating from one color to another. So you notice in my game, like sometimes you just might want to fade from one color to another, like I do it with the tiles in the background. So you can imagine start color right here, which is black, being 0, and end color, which is green. So over a time period, which for this script is 0.3 seconds, it'll go from here to here. So it'll be all black, and then it'll go to green, and then back to black over 0.3 seconds. But having this curve really allows you to add some character to your animations. Instead of doing it through code, you can have your animations look really nice and do it pretty easily. But the effect we're doing is actually just using this list of random colors. Just picks a random one every frame and switches to it. So let's look at that code again really quick. So in this color animation script, we have a list of colors, and I have this random color class, which is just a color and a weight. So we could give certain colors have them pop up more than others. But okay, let's go back into our coroutine. So we have a simple while loop, so it's just going to stay in this loop. And important thing about coroutines is they don't operate in sync with the game engine, like the update and fixed update loops. But you can kind of force it to happen with this yield return new wait for fixed update or wait for update. So if you do this, then it'll execute the code and then wait for in this case, the fixed update loop to get called, and then it'll call this code one more time. So then if we want to stop it, I just call this stop method, which stops all coroutines. You could have multiple coroutines running at once. So whenever we're done, I just call this stop and it'll stop all of them. So that is how coroutines work. Let's go ahead and look at another one. This is looping through random colors, but let's go and look at the case where we want to loop from one color to another. So this tween method flashes between two colors using the animation curve. So that's like how I was describing it before. It'll go from the start color to end color, using this animation curve over this amount of time. So in this case, in the tweet, I have the possibility to loop or not loop. So we have this bool that's playing the animation. Here's where all the magic happens. We have a timer. That timer gets incremented over delta time, and we just check if that timer is greater than this color animation dot time. That's this variable right here. So if it's greater, then we're going to kind of subtract that time from the timer. So basically reset it to 0. But if we reset it to 0, then we'd miss like a small fraction of time. For example, let's say this timer is at 0.5 seconds when it hits this if statement, and the color animation dot time is at this is at 0.3. So if we just set this to 0, then there's 0.2 seconds in there that we kind of just missed in our animation. So instead, if we just subtract that time, we keep the animation a little more seamless. So if we're looping, we're just going to set the timer down again. Otherwise, if we're not looping, we're going to end the this animation. So we're going to make this false. But basically, the way I set up a lot of these coroutines is we have a timer, and then I have like a percent variable. So the percent is how far are we through this animation. So that's timer over the total time for the animation. And then we can evaluate the curve at that percent. So as we're going through the animation, say we're 0.1 seconds in, we'll get to 0.1 over 0.3 and evaluate the curve at that location. We'll give you some value along the curve over time. And you can do a lot of cool tweens, animations, scaling, motion, stuff like that. But let's go and see if you want to call this on your own from the custom controller script. I added in functionality for you to be able to play either a tween color animation or the random color animation from the custom controller script. And all you have to do is pass in a button type and if you want it to loop or not, and button type being what we've the buttons on the AR controller, so menu, thumbstick, touchpad. So let's go ahead and look at how we call this method to start our animations. For me, it's inside the tutorial. There's as we move to different stages of my tutorial, I start flashing different buttons. So here we say is our mixed reality controller manager instance active, and we talked about this in previous tutorials. So if you haven't seen the previous tutorials, go and check those out before getting into this one. But then we're going to get the custom controller left, and we're going to start animating the thumbstick and the trigger in this case. Some other cases, you can get the custom controller right, play random color animation on a certain button, the thumbstick, the trigger, etc., and loop or not. Now, let's go and look at those inside our scene. So you should have these custom controller prefabs that are linked under your motion controllers. We have a custom controller left and right. That's what we've designed. And here I've just added the ability to animate these different buttons. So let's go look at some of those buttons. So the joystick, for example. So these physical objects, if I go look at it in the scene, this is the part of the 3D model that we want to animate the material on, has a tween color script on it. And that is referencing this color animation that we've set up to play random colors. So I hope that helps. If you have any other questions about this, shoot us a message, but I'll post all this code so you guys can get in there and play with it. Mainly in this tutorial, we talked about creating scriptable objects, which are little scripts you can declare public variables, and they act like assets in the scene. So the cool thing about doing this is we can create one animation and drag it into a bunch of different objects. So the joystick has it, the different parts of this controller all have that same animation on them. The thumb pad, for example, still has the same color animation that we've set up. And then coroutines. The nice thing about coroutines is if you want to do something over time, it's just a nice handy way to do it. You have a little timer that iterates in its own little loop. You don't have to worry about an update loop and setting flags and unsetting flags inside an update loop and managing a bunch of different states. It's nice to just be able to change to a state, start a coroutine. When you end the state, leave a coroutine. Oh, and one final thing to mention is these Unity actions. Okay, sorry for the short break there. I wanted to show you a coroutine that actually had a Unity action in it. So I know I was using it in this AI yellow boss script. So let's look at that. In my yellow boss, I have a bunch of different state machines, and for each state inside my state machine, I have some coroutines. So for example, my boss has this saw attack. The boss has a bunch of parts that all need to come into a circle, so that's what this state does. It brings them in, and then we have a build-up state, which just starts to rotate the boss as if it was a big saw, and then we have attack state where it flies at the player, then it slows down, and then it's done. So in each one of these, I have coroutines to handle each different part of the each state. And in here you can see these funny little pieces of code, and that is a Unity action. So let's go ahead and look at something like rotate laser anchor. So no, let's go ahead and look at this saw attack one. So inside, here's a coroutine set up just like we saw it in our tween color script. We have an IEnumerator, and we're passing in a Unity action. I call mine on finish. And I set it equal to null. That way you don't have to provide a parameter here or not. I don't know if you've seen that before or not in Unity. Pretty nice. You don't have to do polymorphism. Or I guess it's a nice way to do polymorphism. You can provide this parameter or not provide this parameter. If you don't provide a parameter, it just defaults to null. But anyways, like all my coroutines, or like most of them anyways, I have a little timer and a while loop. And while the timer is less than some animation time, we're going to increase the time, wait for the next update, and just keep looping until that timer is greater than the animation time. I get the percent of the animation, and then in this case we're rotating an object, so I see how much should I have rotated by this point. I look at an animation curve and say, how much should I have rotated? What's the difference between how much I have rotated and how much I need to have rotated? Rotate that much, so on and so forth. But really what I want to talk about is this on finish. So once this is done doing its magic where it's rotating this object, it's going to call whatever piece of code I pass in here. This Unity action is just a little wrapper where you can just pass in methods, you can pass in basically any block of code you want, and it'll get called right here. So it's really handy that way. So let's go back and see how we were using it here. So this is how the action gets passed in. And a lot of times I'll do this, and let me just separate it out this way so you can see it a little better. So you start off with this little open parens and then equal sign and arrow. So you can kind of think of like an empty method and you're passing in some code here. So in this case, I call this method where I want to switch to the next state, but we could easily do a bunch of code in here. Like we could have, let's say we had a variable speed and we wanted to laser rotate speed, we could want to set it to 10, and we wanted to call, you know, method A. Sorry, my autocorrect is, I'm gonna have to fight my autocorrect. Say we wanted to call method 1 and method 2. We could treat this just as any type of code we want. We can have a bunch of methods in here, and that'll all get bundled up into one little Unity action. And once this coroutine is done, and we just call onFinish.evoke, whatever your variable name is, you just invoke it, and it'll call that entire block of code that you passed in. So it's a really kind of neat way to pass a block of code in as a parameter. And that's Unity action. I hope that helps, and hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll catch you later.